How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Murphy Street Podcast. I'm the host of the show, Murphy. Rules on Murphy Street are simple, always the same: shoes and slippers at the door. Come inside and let's talk story. As always, we want to make sure to shout out the fact that we are sitting in from the heart of Hawaii, my favorite shop to be podcasting from. And of course, my guy, Ken, the Godfather, is in the house. Trust me, he's here. He would say hi, but he doesn't want to. He's shy. But nonetheless, you guys, it is great to see all of you guys. How's it going? Yeah, so tonight we'll be talking about The Bad Batch. Episode 5 is actually going to be more of a recap and, of course, my retelling. But I will have some questions that I would love to have your participation on. Episode 5 was called The Return. Now, I'm going to remind you, episode 1, 2, and 3 was a 2-1, two good episodes, and a filler. Episode 4 was a filler. Now, episode 5, I was hoping for some action. Oh, okay. Well, then just so you know, Nate, don't blame me. Spoiler alert. I'm just going to preface everything. Spoiler alert, you guys. Spoiler alert. We're talking about Bad Batch episode 5. If you haven't watched it yet, do watch it. Guys, remember that it drops 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's like 10 p.m. 10 p.m. here in Hawaii. So I'm up late making sure that I get this down. Doc Ray, see, I told you I'd be on. I hope you watched. I hope you watched the Bad Batch, because we are going to go into it right now. I will say this. Like I said, I was hoping that we weren't getting another filler episode. So once I saw Echo in the thumbnail, I was like, yes, this is finna be good, right? That's what I thought. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but I'm just saying I was really hyped once I saw Echo. It opens up and Omega's like waking up, and this is kind of a scene that we don't necessarily see or haven't seen in this season yet, because she was obviously in the compound the entire time. Ev says, haven't seen it yet. I'll watch it after I see the episode. Okay, cool. It's cool. Like I said, the first 3 episodes were 2-1 ratio. The next one's another filler. And this one, the jury's still out until I actually give my verdict on. But anyway, Omega's reunited with that doll again, instead of having that one that she had to fabricate herself while in the factory. And it definitely gives you that feeling that she's home. Now, Crosshair, they say, as a matter of fact, verbatim says, I think it was Hunter who says he's still adjusting.
Still adjusting.
For me personally, again, Crosshair is my guy. I need him to get over it and just get back to the way things were. The Bad Batch ain't the Bad Batch without Crosshair. Plain and simple. It is that simple for me. I'm still loving the dynamic between Omega and Crosshair, though, and I will say this because, honestly, at one point in time, Omega was, I don't want to say getting on my nerves, but I was like, really, dude, do we have to tell this story through her? And I will say that she is actually starting to prove her worth. Again, because I did start to see it towards the end of a series or season 2, but definitely this early in the season for season 3, she's starting to prove her worth, and that I'm beginning to appreciate on a much higher level, which is great, because then it'll bring more value to the show, if you ask me, especially for older middle-aged men who are watching this and complaining. The same people that complain about Ariel being a black mermaid. Like, come on, guys, get over it. It's not that serious, right? So anyway, why does Crosshair seem to not be very, very willing to share intel? And I asked this because they're sitting around the table. Omega put out Nalise's data pad, and she's like, okay, that's everything I got. And they're like, man, we just need to be able to get the information from it. And they looked at Crosshair's like, what do you got? And he's like, man, really, I was just a prisoner there, so I really don't got much. But it didn't look like he was being honest. And I thought they might dig a little more into that. They didn't. I don't believe so. But it's just, I was really interested as to why Crosshair was seemed to be holding some news or some information back. I just didn't understand that. I love the fact that they gave him his old armor back. Because at this point in time, I'm like, all right, now we can get hyped, because Crosshair has his armor back, and that's kind of like, that completes that transformation, or that re-transformation from him crossing over to the dark side and then coming back to, of course, the crew. And this is me thinking as a collector, right? I'm wondering, are they going to just re-release the Crosshair figure that they had originally? Because he's literally back in his regular costume. So they're like, yes, we can just re-drop this one again. Because I will say this, you guys, if you guys have looked it up, that Crosshair figure still commands a good, like, 40, anywhere between 40 and 60 bucks is what that Crosshair is going for. So it's not cheap at all. You see that bird that Dave Filoni is very notorious for foreshadowing with. And so we see the bird a couple times, I think once in the beginning, once in the middle, once towards the end, obviously kind of like signifying the different stages, right? I will say this, you guys, again, this is me thinking as a figure collector. I want this Crosshairs figure, but I want him to have that little toothpick in the mouth. This huge worm, W-Y-R-M is how the captions spell it. So, they got to be cool and make it like that. But it breaks through the ice, and wow, You know, it just creates this crazy scenario that is very, very prototypical, quintessential Bad Batch. Um, but I was like, how did he know that that's what the sensors were keeping out? That thing was crazy. They devised this plan. Okay, this is what the Bad Batch does. A problem presents itself. They come up with a plan. It's something crazy where they all kind of divide up and eventually come back together again, and they all prevail on whatever level that is. All right, so that's exactly what happens. And now Hunter and Crosshairs, who are just at each other's throats, are now made to have to work together. So this is going to be interesting, right? But for me, I'm like, finally, a Bad Batch plan. Like, finally, it's something that feels like the same deal that made me actually start watching the Bad Batch in the first place. And it's been a while since I actually had that feel because, I don't know, I feel like they're going away from it. Now, long story short, they execute the plan. Hunter and Crosshairs become friends again, and they start to gel and be more cohesive. And Echo's like, oh yeah, I told you that was going to happen. I will tell you this: I did glean. I always like to try and take like one cool quote from the show. This particular one, I came across a quote that I think it was Hunter who said,
"All we can do is keep trying to be better, and who knows?" There just might be hope for us yet.
now, I will give you my synopsis of this episode. I will start by saying this. Okay, so another filler type episode, but at least we got the team back together and we went on a prototypical Bad Batch mission. I love the mention of Rex, so I can't wait to see him. Grade for this episode for me was a solid B, maybe a B plus. Filoni and Favreau have always talked about how they have a story to tell and they're going to take their time and tell it. The only problem right now is this show is on its final countdown, so there's a bit more urgency for me as a fan of the Bad Batch to get things moving. But with things the way they are at this point, with all the cameos we saw in the trailer that are still lingering, with everything still remaining to be resolved, this show should start to get really, really good and stay on a high note all throughout. So you guys, if you guys are just starting the Bad Batch now, I think now is a good time to jump in. Definitely. So again, this is episode 5. So from this point forward, I'm guessing that it's just too action-packed for the last 10 episodes for us to really get too many more filler episodes. So again, strap in because I'm guessing that it's going to be good. Now, here's a couple of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys, because I know that you guys are also Star Wars fans, all right? Who are the cameos that we're still waiting on? Now, who are the people that we've seen in the trailers that we haven't seen so far yet? So for me, the obvious ones. Cad Bane. We're still waiting on Cad Bane. We're still waiting on Fennec Shan. Fennec Shan actually was in season 2. Cad Bane also season 2. That was a great feud, and it'll be interesting to see what that Cad Bane feud is like now that Crosshairs is on the other side of the bullet, so to speak. Asajj Ventress, you guys. We saw a Asajj Ventress that we've never seen canonized before, other than outside of the books realm. Now, what we saw is Asajj Ventress with like a side comb. Just so you know, that Asajj Ventress is taken from the Quinlan Vos books, where she actually is his girlfriend, which is great because it then kind of hints at the fact that we may get Quinlan Vos in. Now, how cool would that be? Now that we went over who we're actually waiting on, who we actually had confirmation of, who, like my Darth Vader guess, would be dope to see. Like, who would be somebody that you would like to see? Hear me out on this, you guys, because they did him so dirty. No, they didn't do him dirty. Actually, the audiences started out doing him dirty, but they redeemed him. Disney did when they brought him back in. So I'm talking about Ahmed Best. I'm talking about the man who played Jar Jar Binks. I'm talking about the man who actually, after he played Jar Jar Binks, who was probably one of the most hated guys in the universe. And just so you know, shout out to my guy D Nice, because D Nice was wondering if we might actually see the Darth Binks, the Darth Jar Jar storyline come out. Ahsoka Jedi friend, I thought I seen. Yeah, oh, maybe, yeah. And it makes sense that Ahsoka would pop up in here too. Yeah, so you're right. Ahsoka would probably be one of those cameos we're waiting on as well. But Kelleran Beck, you guys. If you remember from The Mandalorian Season 3, we got the story of how Grogu actually escaped Order 66, the temple. And it was Kelleran Beck who got him out of the temple. That is Ahmed Best, another Black Jedi. We don't got too many. So, we try to get our guys back in. But how cool would it be to have Kelleran Beck not only become, the animated form and Jar Jar, but also, well, obviously he had nothing to do with that animated form, but also for Kelleran Beck to become part of the animated canonized Clone Wars series, this Bad Batch series. I think that'd be cool. Again, I talked about how we see that Asajj Ventress with the side comb. That would actually be a segue for us to get some Quinlan Voss. And I don't know if you guys know who Quinlan Voss. Actually, Quinlan Voss was, I believe he was present in Clone Wars, one of the earlier seasons. So we actually had him there. It wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility for him to show up. I'd love to see how that dynamic between him and Asajj Ventress go, though, because she actually dies in the book. So how would she come back? Well, you know, Night Sisters, all that kind of crazy stuff like that. But I will say this, if we got Quinlan Voss, I would love to see how they explain, and I'd love to see them animate and illustrate the way that we get Asajj Ventress back, because I think it would be a really cool process for us. Who else would be dope to see? And I'm going to keep it simple on this. I think Obi-Wan and Yoda would be two cool cats to see pop up in the show. Obviously, probably Force ghosting at this point in time, but it's always cool to just see these old names come by. For me, especially because it's immediately relevant, Thrawn. I feel like Grand Admiral Thrawn would be a great one to come through. Grand Admiral Thrawn would be I would say a gimme. Now here's one, or here's a couple I think you guys might actually dig as well. I say an animated Din Djarin, Grogu, and of course Bo-Katan, even though we've had Bo-Katan before. I'd love to see Bo-Katan come back, and I think she would allow for a great segue for Din Djarin and Grogu. Imagine that. Nobody would be expecting that, right? It ain't just me. I know. It's kind of crazy, but I'm just saying, if it happens, you heard it here first. Murphy Street Podcast, dropping heat for you. And last but not least, the Bad Batch Season 1 actually started, Episode 1 started with this, and I think it'd be cool if we closed out with kind of the same, I don't want to say a throwback, but it started with the young Kanan Jarrus, whatever his Jedi name was at the time, I can't remember, but it started off with a young Kanan Jarrus, and I would love to see him come back, make that comeback, and we finish off. So that is what I say. Again, for episode 5 of the Bad Batch, I give it a B, possibly a B+. All right. Please allow me to remind you that I will have the Murphy Street collector shirts popping up very, very soon. And I was going to put it on my TikTok store, but instead I may be doing it on the Pancho Avalos site. He is the artist of the Murphy Street collector shirt. And if you haven't seen it, I do have it on some of my posts on TikTok. And of course, on the Instagram account. Again, we have 3 colors. We have a black long sleeve. We have a off-white, which is the one I'm most excited about. And I want the link to be live by next week. That is the intention. I should be launching them in about a week. They are limited to 50. They will be individually numbered. They will have a wet signature by Pancho Avalo. He's going to live sign every single shirt that we are selling that comes in this particular hype shirt that I've made. But yes, so please make sure that you follow me on all of my social medias, whether it is TikTok, whether it is Instagram, whether it is Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It is all Murphy Street 808. I actually am going to do some whatnot stuff. Yeah, I'm going to be selling some things, I guess, but it's more just to kind of like open me up to another audience of people, because we all kind of collect the same things, right? So hopefully I meet more people that way as well, but also Murphy Street 808. As you know, Murphy Street Productions is the YouTube side of things, and that wraps it all up for us. So, as you guys know, every time we leave here on Murphy Street, we always have the saying, and we want to say thank you, first of all. And secondly, as always, don't forget your slippers. Aloha.